In the busy city of Kingsworth lived a man named Alaric Thornwell. Alaric was one of the richest men in the whole city. He owned tall glass buildings, big companies, and more cars than he could count. But even with all his wealth, he was a gentle man. He always gave money to the poor and helped sick children in the hospital. Alaric had everything money could buy, except true love. For 2 years he had been dating a beautiful woman named Serafina Vale. Serafina was tall, with shining black hair and bright eyes. Everywhere she went, people stopped to look at her beauty. Alaric loved her deeply. He bought her golden necklaces, diamond rings, and clothes from the most expensive stores. He took her to restaurants where meals cost more than some people's monthly salary. But still there was something missing. Deep in his heart, Alaric sometimes felt that Serafina's smile was not real. He often asked himself, does she love me for who I am or only for my money? One afternoon, after a long day at work, Alaric decided to surprise Serafina. He bought her favorite flowers, white roses, and a small box with a diamond bracelet inside. He wanted to make her happy. He drove straight to her house, parked his shiny black car outside, and walked into the parlor without knocking as he usually did. But as soon as he opened the door, he froze. Serafina was sitting with her friend, laughing loudly. She had not noticed him enter. Alaric stood quietly near the doorway, his heart already beating fast. Serafina, her friend asked with a grin, do you really love Alaric? He is rich, yes, but love is something else. Serafina rolled her eyes and laughed. Love? Please. I don't love him at all. He is too ugly for my liking. The only reason I am still with him is because he is wealthy. Can you imagine leaving all that money behind? Her words cut through Alaric's heart like a sharp knife. His hands trembled. He almost dropped the flowers. His knees felt weak and he thought he might sink into the ground right there. Her friend giggled. So you're only using him? Serafina shrugged, smiling proudly. Of course. What else would I be doing with a man like him? Without money, I would never even look at him twice. Alaric could not take any more. Quietly, without saying a word, he turned around and walked out. His face burned with shame and his chest ached with pain. When he got into his car, he did not start the engine immediately. He just sat there staring at the roses and the diamond bracelet in his hand. The words, I don't love him. He is too ugly for my liking, played again and again in his mind like a broken song. That night he could not sleep. For weeks her cruel words haunted him. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her laughing face and heard her voice saying she was only with him for his wealth. Alaric stopped visiting her. He stopped calling. Serafina sent him messages, but he could not bring himself to reply. He was heartbroken, but more than that, he was determined. I must find true love, he whispered to himself one lonely evening. A woman who will love me for my heart, not for my money. And that was when the idea came. He would leave Kingsworth for a while. He would go to another city where no one knew him. He would hide his wealth and his name. He would dress like a poor man, even a beggar, and see who would still treat him with kindness. If Serafina pretended to love me because of wealth, then how many others would do the same? The next morning he called Serafina. His voice was calm, but inside his heart was heavy. Serafina, he said, I will be traveling for 1 month. I have business in another city. Don't wait for me. Serafina, thinking only about his money, quickly replied, Of course, darling. I'll be right here when you return. After the call, Alaric began to prepare. He told his workers he was taking a break from business. He packed some old clothes, torn shoes, and even rubbed ashes on them so they would look dirty. He shaved his beard roughly so his face looked different. Then he placed all his expensive suits, gold watches, and leather shoes back into the wardrobe. Looking into the mirror, he barely recognized himself. The rich, handsome Alaric was gone. In his place stood a tired-looking man dressed like a beggar. Now, he whispered, I will see the truth. He left his mansion in the care of his guards and drove himself to another city, a place called Greymoor. Greymoor was as busy as Kingsworth, full of tall buildings, busy markets, and crowded streets. But unlike Kingsworth, no one knew his face here. He was just another stranger. On his first night he found a small cheap hotel and paid for a tiny room. The bed was hard, the fan made a loud noise, and the bathroom had a leaking tap. The next morning he walked to a big cathedral near the city square. It was Sunday and people filled the streets, dressed in bright clothes. Some women wore hats with feathers, others carried shiny handbags. Men wore suits and polished shoes. Children laughed and ran ahead of their parents. Alaric stood at the gate of the church, dressed like a poor beggar. His clothes were torn, his hair messy, and his shoes full of dust. He sat on the ground and stretched out his hand. "Please help me," he said softly. "Anything will do. I have not eaten." He thought to himself, "Surely in the house of God I will find love and kindness. Surely those who sing and pray will show me mercy." But as the first group of young women passed, they looked at him with disgust. One hissed loudly, "Lazy man. Go and find work instead of sitting here." Another laughed and said, "Look at his dirty clothes. God helps those who help themselves." Alaric bowed his head. His heart sank. Soon some choristers came out, still dressed in their white robes. Their voices had filled the church just minutes ago, singing sweet songs. But when Alaric begged them for food, one waved her hand angrily. "Move away from the gate. You are making the church look dirty." The others laughed and joined her, chasing him away like he was a dog. Alaric could not believe it. These were the same people who prayed inside, singing about love and kindness. Yet outside they showed no mercy. For hours he sat at the corner of the church. People walked past, some covering their noses, some whispering insults, others simply ignoring him as if he was invisible. By afternoon he had lost hope. Maybe Serafina was right, he thought sadly. Maybe love is only a dream. Maybe nobody cares. But just as he was about to get up, he saw a woman walking toward him. She was not dressed like the church sisters. She wore a short red dress and high heels. Her makeup was heavy and her eyes looked tired, as if she had seen too many hard nights. She stopped in front of him, looked at him kindly, and opened her small purse. "Here," she said softly, placing some money in his hand. "Buy yourself food." Alaric stared at her in surprise. "Thank you," he whispered. The woman gave him a small smile. Then she walked away slowly, her heels clicking against the pavement. Alaric watched her go, his heart heavy yet hopeful. The sisters in the church rejected me, he thought. But this woman, who the world calls a sinner, showed me kindness. Maybe God is trying to teach me something. And that was how Alaric's true journey began. The next morning in Greymoor, Alaric woke up in his small hotel room. The bed had made his back ache, but he did not complain. He put on the same old clothes from the day before. His once smooth hands were now dusty. He looked at himself in the cracked mirror and whispered, "Today I will see more. Today I will know if love still lives in this city." Alaric walked back to the cathedral and sat in the same corner. He stretched out his hand as people passed. Some ignored him. Others frowned. A few even laughed. "Look at him," a young man whispered to his friend. "He's strong. Why doesn't he work?" Hours passed. His stomach growled. But then, just like the day before, the woman in the red dress appeared. Her name was Isolde Marlowe, though Alaric did not know it yet. Her steps were slower today and her eyes looked even more tired. But when she saw Alaric, her face softened. "You again," she said gently. Alaric nodded. "Yes, ma'am. I have not eaten." She sighed, opened her purse and gave him a small loaf of bread. "Here. I bought this for myself, but you need it more." Alaric took the bread with shaky hands. "Thank you. May God bless you." She smiled sadly. "I don't think God blesses people like me," she said almost in a whisper. Then she walked away. Alaric sat in silence. He ate the bread slowly, thinking about her words. Why does she believe God will not bless her? What kind of pain has she lived through? The next day Alaric returned again. And again Isolde appeared. This time she gave him a bottle of water. The day after she gave him some coins. And the day after that she gave him a small pack of rice. Day by day she came. Sometimes she had very little, sometimes nothing at all, but she always found something to share with him. Alaric began to wait for her. When he saw her red dress or heard her heels clicking on the road, his heart lifted. She was the only person in that city who treated him like a human being. One afternoon when she gave him money, Alaric looked at her closely and said, "You are kind. Why do you help me when others do not?" Isolde laughed softly, though her eyes filled with sadness. "Because I know what it feels like to be rejected. People see me on the street and call me names. They think I am nothing. But I remember the days when I had nothing to eat and no one cared. I don't want you to feel the same way." Her words touched Alaric deeply. He wanted to ask her more questions, but he knew he had to be careful. He was still in disguise. That night as he lay in bed, Alaric whispered to himself, "Maybe God sent me here not to test others but to find her." He didn't know it yet, but his life was about to change in ways he never expected. The next Sunday morning, the bells of the cathedral rang loudly across Greymoor. Alaric, still in his ragged disguise, sat near the church gate. He wanted to test something. If the sisters and brothers of the church cannot show love to a beggar, then what kind of faith do they truly have? He thought. As the worshippers entered, Alaric stretched out his hand. A group of ushers in white shirts walked past. He called to one of them, "Sir, please, I have not eaten." The usher frowned. "Do not disturb me. I am on duty for God. Go away before I call security." Alaric lowered his head. On duty for God, he thought. But is not kindness the greatest duty of all? As the service went on inside, Alaric could hear the music of the choir. They sang loudly about love, mercy, and grace, yet just minutes earlier, those same voices had cursed him. Tears filled his eyes. "So this is what faith looks like," he whispered to himself. By the end of the service, people came out of the church. Alaric stood again and begged, "Please, just a little help." A young lady in a long skirt turned to him angrily. "Why are you still here? You are making this place unclean." She spat on the ground near him and walked away. Another sister muttered, "If you had prayed inside, maybe God would have helped you. But look at you, lazy and dirty." Alaric almost broke down. He wanted to shout, "I am not lazy. I am rich. I own more than all of you together." But he stayed silent. He was testing their hearts, not their eyes. Just as he was about to leave, a familiar voice called out, "Are they troubling you again?" It was Isolde. She stood there in her red dress, holding a small paper bag. Alaric blinked in surprise. You came." She handed him the bag. Inside was a meat pie and a small bottle of juice. "Eat," she said softly. Alaric's hands trembled. "Why do you always help me? These people, they are supposed to be holy. Yet they mock me. But you are the only one who cares." Isolde sighed. "Those people are holy in words but not in deeds. I know because I have seen their type before. They wear white robes on Sunday but black hearts every other day." Her words cut deep. Alaric nodded slowly. He looked at her with new eyes. Though others rejected him, she, someone they would never respect, was the one showing true love. That evening, Alaric returned to his hotel room and removed his rags. He sat by the window staring at the city lights. "Serafina loved my money, not me," he whispered. "The church sisters loved their pride, not kindness. But Isolde, she has nothing, yet she gives me everything she can. Who is truly rich among them?" He smiled for the first time in weeks. Deep inside, a seed had been planted. A seed of respect, of admiration, maybe even of love. The next morning, Alaric went back to his spot near the church. But his mind was not on the churchgoers anymore. His mind was on Isolde. Alaric was silent. He wanted to know more. "Tell me, what happened to you?" Isolde sighed and sat beside him on the steps. She did not look at him at first. Her eyes stayed on the street, watching the people pass by. "I grew up in a poor home," she began. "My father died when I was little. My mother sold vegetables in the market, but the money was never enough. When I turned 16, my mother became sick. She needed medicine, but we had no money. I tried to find work, but no one would hire me. Finally, someone told me, if you sell yourself, men will pay." She paused, her voice trembling. "At first I refused. But when my mother was dying, I gave in. I thought it would be for one night. Just one. But one night became many. And then it became my life." She looked at her hands, shame clouding her face. "People call me dirty. They call me sinner. But none of them know why I began. None of them care. To them I am nothing." Alaric felt a sharp pain in his chest. For the first time he saw beyond her red dress, beyond her painted lips. He saw her heart, a wounded heart but still a kind one. "You are not nothing," Alaric said softly. "You are more than they see. You are kinder than all of them combined." Isolde looked at him in surprise. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. Her eyes grew wet and she quickly wiped away the tears. "You are strange," she whispered. "Most beggars only ask for money. But you speak like a gentleman." Alaric chuckled nervously. "Maybe I was raised well. For weeks their friendship grew. Each day Isolde would bring him food or sit and talk with him when others passed by without a glance. She told him about her dreams, that one day she would leave the streets, open a small bakery and sell bread to children on their way to school. One rainy evening Alaric waited near the church as usual. But Isolde did not come at her normal time. He grew worried. Hours passed and finally he saw her walking slowly, holding her side. Her face was pale and her dress was torn. "Isolde!" Alaric cried, rushing to her. "What happened?" She winced in pain. "Some men, they tried to hurt me when I refused them. I managed to escape but..." Her voice cracked and tears rolled down her face. Alaric's heart boiled with anger. Without thinking he pulled her into his arms. "You are safe now. No one will hurt you again." She stared at him in shock. His voice was steady, strong, not like the weak beggar she thought she knew. Who are you really?" she whispered. Alaric froze. For weeks he had hidden his identity, afraid of this very moment. But now, as he looked into her trembling eyes, he knew he could not lie anymore. He took a deep breath. "My name is Alaric Thorn. I am not a beggar. I am one of the wealthiest men in the city." Isolde gasped. She stepped back, her hands shaking. "What? But why?" "Because," he said softly, "I wanted to find true love. My old girlfriend stayed with me only for money. I had to know if there was someone who could love me for who I am, not what I own." Isolde covered her mouth. Her eyes were wide, filled with both shock and fear. "So all this time," she whispered, "you were testing me?" Alaric shook his head quickly. "No. At first, yes, I wanted to test people. But with you, it became real. You cared for me when you thought I had nothing. That is why I revealed myself to you. Because you are different." Isolde's chest rose and fell rapidly. She turned away, tears streaming down her face. "All my life people looked down on me. Now you say you are rich. How can I ever fit into your world? I am not good enough for you." Alaric stepped closer, gently holding her shoulders. "No, Isolde. You are more than enough. You are the only one who ever saw my heart." For a long time she said nothing. Only the sound of the rain filled the air. Days passed after the revelation. At first Isolde avoided him, her mind heavy with doubt. She feared his world was too far from hers, that she would only bring him shame. But Alaric did not give up. He visited her small room, brought her food and sat with her in silence until she finally spoke. "Why do you keep coming back?" she asked one evening. "Because I love you," Alaric said simply. "I loved you when you thought I was a beggar. And I love you now. Nothing will change that." Her eyes softened. "But the world will not accept me." "Let the world talk," Alaric replied firmly. "I don't need their approval. I only need you." For the first time Isolde let herself believe his words. Slowly she allowed her heart to trust. Weeks later Alaric took her by the hand and brought her to a quiet garden in the city. Under the glow of lanterns he knelt before her. "Isolde, you are the most courageous, kind and beautiful woman I have ever met. Will you be my wife?" Tears filled her eyes. She covered her mouth, trembling. "Me? Your wife?" "Alaric, Yes," he said, his voice strong. "You." At last she nodded through her tears. "Yes, Alaric. Yes." He slipped a ring onto her finger, not as a symbol of wealth, but of love. They embraced, and for the first time, Isolde felt truly chosen. Not for her body, not for her past, but for her heart. Months later Alaric and Isolde stood together at their wedding. The church was filled with people, yet the air felt quiet and pure. Some whispered about her past. Some judged. But Alaric did not care. He held her hand proudly as they said their vows. When he kissed her, it was not just the kiss of a rich man to his bride. It was the kiss of a man who had searched for truth and finally found it. And Isolde, once broken and rejected, now stood as the beloved wife of a man who valued her heart above all else. The lesson was clear. True love is never about wealth, beauty or status. True love is about seeing the soul and choosing it, even when the world does not approve. And so Alaric and Isolde began their new life. Not perfect, not free from struggle, but filled with the one thing they both needed most: love. The next morning Alaric's old girlfriend, 27-year-old Vanessa, woke up and scrolled through her social media. She froze when she saw a post. "Alaric and Isolde married. Red heart." Her face went pale. For a moment she could not believe it. She had thought he would always be there for her, but now he had found someone else. Someone who truly loved him. Just then her phone buzzed with a new message. Read. Vanessa, I overheard what you said about me that day. You said you didn't love me and were only with me for my money. Thank you for showing me who you really are. It gave me the courage to go and find true love elsewhere. I wish you well. Vanessa dropped her phone and felt a deep regret. She realized that she had lost someone who was kind, strong, and truly loving, all because she had been shallow and greedy.